President Putin warns the West against any unilateral action against Syria and stresses the use of force against a sovereign state is nothing but an aggression. The Egyptian transitional president affirms Egypt's rejection of military intervention into Syria and stresses the need to reach a political solution to the crisis. The Syrian Arab army eliminates large numbers of terrorists in Homs and Aleppo suburbs. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our news for today. Russian President Vladimir Putin has dismissed as unacceptable any pretext to use force against a sovereign, independent state, describing such a step as nothing but aggression. In an interview with the Russian Channel 1 and the Associated Press agency, President Putin said, "The UN Security Council is the only side entitled to authorize the use of force against a sovereign state." On the alleged use of chemical weapons in Damascus suburbs, President Putin said, "We should at least wait the results of the UN investigation team." Putin said no data existed which showed that the Syrian army was the one to use such chemical material and that it was still unknown whether it was a chemical weapon or a mere harmful chemical material. On the Russian arms sales to Syria, Putin made it clear that Russia continues to implement the contracts on arms supplies and maintenance in Syria as it deals with the legitimate government without any violation of international law or other commitments. Putin said there were no UN restrictions on the arms shipments to Syria, adding that it is unfortunate that arms supplies to the armed men have been completely going on since the beginning of the crisis, although international law stipulates that no weapons should be offered to both sides of the crisis. After the Russian president declared his support for the Russian parliament's initiative to send a parliamentary delegation to the American Congress to discuss the crisis in Syria, Russian parliamentarians expressed readiness to meet with their American counterparts to discuss ways of solving the crisis in Syria without the use of force. In a message to the majority leader at the American House of Senate, Harry Reid, the Russian Federation Council's chairwoman, Valentina Matvienko, called for an urgent meeting in Washington, Moscow, or anywhere else. If the U.S. decides to use the military force in Syria without the approval of the UN Security Council, Matvienko said, this will be a flagrant violation of international law principles and will allow the extremist radical groups a free hand in the Middle East. Meanwhile, a Russian military source said that missile vessel Moscow is heading towards the Mediterranean. The source added that the vessel, labeled Killer of Aircraft Carriers, will be heading towards the eastern Mediterranean instead of visiting Mindalo harbor in West Africa. The Egyptian transitional president Adli Mansour stressed Egypt's rejection of any military intervention in Syria. Mansour stressed the necessity of finding a political solution to the crisis, warning against the negative repercussions of any military action under the pretext of chemical weapons. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Jawad Zarif warned against any military action against Syria, pointing out that such an aggression would have catastrophic impact on regional and international security. During a series of phone calls he made with his Irish, Indonesian and Dutch counterparts, Zarif expressed hope that the international community should work to find a political solution to the crisis in Syria. Zarif added that the use of force is a violation of international law, criticizing the use of chemical weapons in any circumstances. Welcome back. Syrian Taekwondo national team player Muhammad Ali Nu'meh was killed today in a terrorist attack with mortar shells that targeted Al Fayha Athletic Hall in Damascus. A Damascus police command source said the attack also wounded 7 other citizens. The source added that 2 more mortar shells fell at the entrance of Al Fayha tunnel, injuring 1 citizen. Another shell fell in Al Berniya street, causing material damage. Martyr Nu'meh was born in 1985. He was getting prepared to participate in the Islamic Solidarity Tournament in Indonesia. He had been the Republic's champion for several years and a player within the Syrian national team since 2006. He had won several medals. An army unit destroyed the headquarters of the so-called judicial court affiliated with the Jabhat al-Nusra Front in Talbisa in Hom's countryside, killing and wounding scores of terrorists. Army units also destroyed a den used by a terrorist gang west of the castle near the cultural center in Talbisa, killing 7 gunmen. Our army units also destroyed weapons and ammunition loaded in 6 cars between Termala and Talbisa, including the terrorist Muhammad al-Riz, leader of a terrorist group. The army also killed 4 terrorists near the post office in Al-Rastan and foiled an attempt to detonate 3 explosive devices on a farm road near Qubaybat al-Asi village north of Al-Rastan. Our army units inflicted heavy casualties on Jabhat al-Nusra terrorists and destroyed their heavy weapons and machine guns in Aleppo countryside. A military source said that our army units clashed with an armed terrorist group near Al-Khudr and Al-Zubayr Mosque in Salah ad-Din neighborhood, destroying their weapons and ammunition. The army also foiled an infiltration attempt into Saif al-Dawla area and killed dozens of terrorists near Al-Muthalathiya garden. The army also destroyed heavy machine guns used by terrorists near the medical center in Qadi Askar, Castello and Dahrat al-Musharfa in Khan al-Asal. The army attacked terrorist gatherings near Queres, Rasm al-Aboud and their Hafir areas. The army eliminated an armed terrorist group which was committing acts of theft and violence against ordinary citizens north of Al-Nayrab and the central prison. In Iraq, command of Iraqi ground troops confirmed the killing of 70 terrorists and the arrest of 2,000 others during military operations along the Iraqi-Syrian borders. Meanwhile, the governorate of the Qar revealed that a Saudi spy plane was detected flying over Al-Nasiriyah prison, in which dozens of Saudi terrorists were being held. Finally, in occupied Palestine, a child was injured when Israeli occupation soldiers opened fire at Palestinians in ancient Jerusalem. Suffocation cases have been reported among Palestinian women who had been on a sit-in inside Al-Aqsa Mosque after being sprinkled with the poisonous pepper gas by the enemy soldiers who denied medical crew access into the mosque. Confrontations, moreover, erupted between the occupation troops and worshippers when scores of Jewish extremists stormed into the yard of the holy Al-Aqsa Mosque. Later, the occupation forces prevented the Mufti of Jerusalem and the Palestinian lands, Sheikh Mohammed Hussein, and several other religious and social figures from entering the mosque. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Vani Gunjan.